Hello, BookTube, and this is the Future History Project, week 28. And this week is for Chimera by Mark W. Tiedemann. It's the second volume in the Isaac Asimov robot trilogy he's written. And this was published in 2001. Now, it carries on the characters of Derek and Ariel. There's not much in the way of robots in here as characters. They're in the story, but they're very peripheral. I'd say. But we carry on. Ariel is still the ambassador, but sort of in the bad books of Aurora. And Derek has basically lost his business, the robotic business, and he's sort of persona non grata on Earth in many ways. So he's been hiding out at the Auroran embassy. And the events start here in a prologue in a sort of a care home, I guess you would say, for children or that are, they call them UPDs, untreatable physiological dysfunction, in the sense that the families would, pay to have the children taken care of. They are going to die, but they sort of get expunged from the memory and not memory so much, but from the records, and it's a sort of a plague type that's with nanotechnology. They don't really develop that or explain too much about that, but it's an interesting idea. But the facility gets broken into, and there are some of the children that are kidnapped. And this, as the story goes on, you find out this has happened a lot. And then it fast forwards to 25 years later, just about a year or so after the events of the first volume, and there is a ex police officer that's chasing down sort of an old friend, old sweetheart, who's actually the daughter of a politician, and she runs Bailey's, and it's an interesting term because it's from Elijah Bailey, but with a small b, and Bailey's are sort of settlers, illegal settlers that are sent up in containers into planets, and the planet that they want to go to is Nova Levis. But it's all intertwined though with politics and cybernetics. Cybernetics, hence the Chimera, I think, title. And the children have been kidnapped, and according to the story, the way the cybernetic creatures, because they're no longer human, but they're not quite robot. They're melding of like there's positronic aspects to the brain, but they have to start either with birth or very young children, and they grow this material in them. But it also, the three laws of robotics don't work. They are sort of psychotic but superhuman abilities. But we don't know this until quite a while in. You just know that that there was a container full of Baileys. They were running to get them, but they were all dead, and they find out there's a lot of dead, they're smuggling people to planets off of Earth. And this Nova Levis planet is a blockaded planet. We don't really get into too much. It's a lot of politics that is sort of happening in the background. There's little indications of it. We saw this all in the first one, so I think he's trying to tie in something quite big, but it's very vague at times. Um, and so Ariel sort of teams up on, she gets sort of back into the not quite good books with the Aurorans, but she's sent on assignment to work with this cop who's chasing down the killer of his sweetheart, the daughter of a politician. And it just seems kind of weird because she seems like a sex craved teenager in a sense, because it's like all the time she wants to jump into bed with this guy, but he doesn't seem to be too interested at the time. And plus, he's like, he's got a fractured shoulder and he's been beat up several times. But it's very strange. Like I thought the characters were quite close to the way they were in the first one, but Ariel just doesn't seem to match up. Like I don't know what the author has done with her, but and it is, again, it's too long for the story. It's like almost 200 pages too long. Anywhere from 150 to 200 pages. If it was cut out, it would make a faster paced story. Maybe 250 pages, 300 maximum, but 300 I think would be too much as well. There's some interesting aspects in it about robotics, but the thing is, it's like in these stories they seem to, like it's subverting the laws of the 3 laws of robot. This is stuff that's been done over and over by Simak, 50, 60, 70 years ago, and they're still doing it in these books. And it's like I know, like, there's going to be issues that will continue, but it just seems like, try to do something new, interesting, but I guess that's not the game here, is just going back to the familiar. One thing that I didn't mention with the first book that I thought was kind of interesting, because they had the robot Bogard, bodyguard, sort of a short form for that, because he was built as a bodyguard, and the writer puts in or attempts to sort of having the robot's thoughts, its processes of identifying danger and which law it works, and there's little sections of this. It was a good try, but it just didn't work, and sadly it wasn't or maybe good that it wasn't repeated in here. But the cybernetic, the cyborgs, I don't know. It just he's sort of creating this thing that, like to make a cyborg, it's going to be psychotic. You can't control it. And I think that goes back to the one of the in the Robot City ones, where the young guy's brain was put into a robot and there was issues. But that was sort of, they found out what the issues was. It was a hormonal issue that they didn't, the other robots didn't think of or compensate for. But it seemed like something that could be compensated for, so wouldn't actually be a problem. I don't know. Again, it's like Claire, who comments and is one of the few that are still reading through with me the Future History Project. She said she's tired of these characters, and yeah, I'm pretty much the same. They're getting old after, this will be almost 2,500 or 3,000 pages by the time the third book is done. But there's, as I say, there's some interesting things here, but there's also things that don't quite match up. I was sort of a little hesitant to talk about how Earth is shown, because in both books they're mostly in Washington D.C. area, but this is the Caves of Steel sort of city where it's enclosed, and it seems like more people are going outside. Which I guess if there's more settlers happening, then that sort of works. But there seems to be a lot more road vehicles, which they don't seem to be, because the idea that I understood in the Isaac Asimov one, that the roads were still there, but they were on very lower levels, and they were basically tunnels, and they were rarely used. But this seems to be that they're on the same level with the moving sidewalks, or the moving roads. I forget what they Asimov had called them, the strips, because they were the strip runners. And I just don't quite get the feeling of being enclosed, because they talk about going to other areas, and yeah, I could see, buildings, being worn down in poor areas, but it made it sort of sound like that, there's which I guess makes sense, but sorry, I'm just thinking here, because like there's rich areas where they seem to people have everything, which sort of makes sense, but in the Isaac Asimov, it seems like the whole society was based on the fact that they're regimented into certain tiers, based on their jobs, and you see, to have this disparity doesn't quite, like, I mean, with the rich, because if they just have money they can buy what they want rather than fitting in somewhere in this tier system. It just seems like it doesn't work in that society, because they have to work together and they have to give up so much stuff in order to survive. I sort of question that a little bit for here. It might be a more rounded and accurate portrayal of a society, but it doesn't match what Asimov had done. I'm not sure if I accidentally called Asimov Simak at some point, which I do occasionally. But yeah, yeah, it was interesting. Let's put it that way. And it's clearly, it's going to be off world, I think, with the third one, or off Earth, and with Aurora, because it looks like Ariel's being sent back to Aurora to study the cyborg that they did catch, and they're still looking for more, because they shut down a whole system of this stuff. And Derek probably is going to be going back, and Bogard has sort of been resurrected, even though he was completely destroyed pretty well. But they got the framework of his matrix, his positronic brain, and one of the robot there, they implanted that on, plus Derek's AI computer, which is not quite positronic by the sounds of it, but very close to being positronic. Thales, which is an interesting character. That's the closest they got through here in this book for a robotic type character, because he seems to be very human, and when he first was introduced in the first book, I thought it was actually a person, but it's actually the AI. In this book, is shorter, which is good. But it's only 400 pages, so it's about 50 to 60 pages shorter, which probably isn't enough. Well, actually, I don't think it's shorter. The print is much smaller. Yes, the print is much smaller, so it's about the same size as the others. It does have an extended sort of chronology of the Robot Foundation universe, an unofficial timeline by Attila Torkos. Yeah, and we'll go through that when I do this, and I'm hoping that I can get this done and out by Saturday, and so I'm getting caught up, because August is a busy month. I'm hoping I can do that, but they're a bit repetitive, and yeah, I am getting a bit bored by them. I want to get back to Asimov. There's definitely not the flair of Asimov, but these are better than the other robots books that we've read so far. The 18 of them. So there's this one. Then there's after this Aurora, there is Have Robot Will Travel. I don't know anything about that one. I haven't even looked at it. I don't know if it's the same character. I don't know if Derek or Ariel are characters. I'll take a look at that, and then I think we're back to Asimov for a bit, and then there is the last three, our trilogy of robot books by another author, which those are the ones I believe have been highly, highly thought of. So we'll see. Anyway, if you are one of the few that are still reading through with the Future History Project, do sound out below in the comments, and what are your thoughts on these books? And I am getting caught up, and I will be caught up hopefully within a week or two. Anyway, take care, BookTube. I'll see you next time.